let's discuss this horrific story now. Further, we are joined by criminologist Professor Kholofelo Rakubu. Thank you so much for your time, Prof. We do appreciate it. I think you were probably just as shocked like the rest of South Africa when we heard what was coming out of Soweto. It seems as though the target is not just, armed robbery or whatever else it might be, but you have vulnerable children, those that are the most vulnerable in our society, need to be protected, that are now being targeted and being murdered in such a horrible and horrific way.
Thank you. Yes, it's such a barbaric crime, and which now forces us to revisit multiple aspects relating to safety that we have been talking about. Now, when we analyze what had happened, it's just pure criminality. Obviously, there was a motivated offender. That motivated offender analyzed level of vulnerability in Soweto, absence of a capable guardian. And with the motivated offender, obviously there are multiple factors, social and environmental factors that motivated the offender to decide to take this decision, because criminology teaches us that the built environment does contribute to one's decision to commit crime or not commit crime. So when we analyze Soweto, what are those factors that might have contributed to that? Because with motivated offender, absence of a capable guardian, now we tap into visible policing or police presence or neighborhood watch or the functionality of CPFs and other relevant structures in the community. Because in the absence of those structures, an offender is motivated. Now, let's tap into the motivated offender aspect. We have to tap into South Africa's special patterns and structures of our communities and cities, because those have elements of segregation and emanate from the apartheid ideology. When those townships and communities were formed, they did not incorporate principles of crime prevention through environmental design. That is why we don't have access control, issues with territoriality, maintenance, and lighting, and police visibility, amongst many other aspects. Because for such a perpetrator to walk into the community and commit such a crime, obviously they analyze and understand what is lacking. Now, what is it that Soweto community is supposed to do? A multidisciplinary approach or community safety audit, where now, because it's clear, a child playing outside is no longer safe. A child playing near home is no longer safe. So as a community, what can we do to ensure safety? With community safety audit, obviously we are going to revisit all critical elements that are necessary in ensuring community safety. Yeah. If now it emanates from law enforcement, they must be called to order and come to fore. If now there are issues of load shedding or poor maintenance or cutting or debushing and so forth, we need to tap into those. If now as a community we need to come and move away from apartheid ideology and create access control, maintain visibility, include CCTVs, maybe South Africa should look into that direction, because we cannot now force our children to always be indoors in the townships when they are not used to that.
Yeah, and the thing is, you touch on a point here where you say if it's load shedding that's exacerbating the situation. One community member actually told our reporter on the scene, Mangoba Mkunu, that in actual fact, it's very difficult to keep children indoors, especially when there's load shedding. And why can a child not go out and play in the park or wherever else it might be? They are children, they should be free. But the issue here is, you keep saying this multi approach to dealing with all of this. And what's alarming is the fact that these community members have said time and time again that they've informed the police about these issues. They've highlighted that there was a suspicious vehicle in the area, but it's almost as though these communities are ignored. And we're not just talking about Soweto, where these two boys were mutilated and murdered, and the third one managed to get away. This happens often, and there's outrage, and there's, oh, we're going to do something about it, but nothing is actually ever done. So how do we approach it in a different way? Because clearly the approach that we are taking now is not working, and we're losing people every single day.
True. It is clear that our law enforcement is not capacitated enough, or that is not willing to do what it's supposed to do. Now, with a multidisciplinary approach, remember, a multidisciplinary approach requires environmental design, it requires community and stakeholder involvement. Now, communities should just take ownership of their own communities, have community safety plans. Right? And I guess we're moving to a policing philosophy where now we're taking certain powers from the police, because our children are going to be killed. If we were to wait for them to respond, then we are going to lose it. Now, as communities, let's restructure our own communities to ensure our safety. If it requires restructuring in a sense that now we have access control as communities, let's do that. Let's do constant community audit. Let's do neighborhood watches. Let's revisit principles of neighborhood watch and do what we can do, because in the meantime, while police in South Africa is still dealing with their own issues, let's, as communities, try to do our own part. Because if you report a suspicious car and they don't do anything, now from your own community safety audits, you identify aspects that will compromise your safety and deal with it. But now, as South African, it's catch-22 situation, because with load shedding, which perpetuate level of criminality and collapses safety in the communities, what are we supposed to do? Because then the government is just letting us down. And remember, even these motivated offenders, they are motivated because they are part of community and they understand police vulnerability. They understand police failure to respond efficiently. That is why they move so freely in our communities. You go and report and they know nothing is going to happen. So at some point, we will not even need SAPS in the country if matters are moving towards this direction. So let's revisit the principles of community safety.
Yeah.
Community safety, and as communities, we take ownership. And these aspects are going to perpetuate level of mob justice, because a frustrated community is not going to let any criminal pass. It's not going to give criminal justice system any process to deal with a motivated offender who's motivated by the very irregularities emanating from our corrupt officials.
I hear what you're saying, because communities are now living in fear. They feel frustrated. They feel angry that nothing is really being done. And, you know, Prof, this is the point I'm trying to make, is that there's so much outrage and then suddenly there's just silence. And then this happens again in a couple of months. So I want to just get a last word from you on your advice to these communities, the community of Soweto in Rockville. You know, what should they be doing? Should they just mobilize together and try and create these community safety forums? It's unfortunate because, you know, we have the South African Police Service available, yet they are undercapacitated. But what should these communities do?
These communities, besides community safety audits, they must now adopt strategies. And in those, the strategies that have abilities to influence offenders' decision. And now this is very dangerous, because when communities come up with a strategy that has an ability to influence offenders' decision, they are going to set a precedent and an example. Someone will be banned, and we don't want that. But communities left with no choice to now come up with a strategy that will influence your decision. Should you start, they are going to deal with you. And those decisions should precede criminal acts. And the decision should also impact on the social and administrative environment, besides including built environment. Let's see what we can do around our communities to just fence it. Territorial reinforcement. If you walk around my community, who are you? And what is your purpose here? We're not going to be given time to call anyone. Who are you? What is your purpose here? You don't belong here. Should you be found on the wrong side of the law, I'm afraid they are going to deal with it so as to send strong message to other perpetrators that are highly motivated due to other law enforcement related factors that hinders provision of service delivery, which is police visibility and police presence.
Okay, thank you so much for your insights. It was a very insightful conversation. That was Criminologist Professor Kholofelo Rakubu, and we just hope something gives. Something's got to give. That story in Soweto really was absolutely shocking.